everyone, welcome to part 2 of Tales from the Wandering Scribe and Wandering Quill May the 4th episode special. Or as I like to call it, a late night episode special. As you can tell, it's now evening where I'm at. So let us continue with part 2 of Star Wars Son of Mandalore. Chapter 2. The next day, Karem began his lightsaber training. Though no prior experience with such a weapon, he had had other experience with blade-like weapons in the past, such as Beskar swords, as well as the staff. However, not everyone was pleased with his training, or the idea of him training. On this particular day, a handful of teenage Mandalorians from the Spar clan gave the young Mando a visit. Karem felt their presence before they did anything. He turned off his lightsaber and turned around, facing the large group. HK already had a blaster at the ready. The group was well equipped with Beskar swords, laser pistols, and wore armor with their clan symbol on the front. They were led by a young Mandalorian with green eyes, blue hair, and several tribal tattoos. "So, may I help you?" Karem asked in the most polite way possible. The leader drew out his Beskar sword and pointed at Karem's face. He had a smug expression and walked towards Karem until it was only a few feet away. "Word is that you have a sacred relic of Mandalorian history in your possession. Well, we true Mandalorians would like it back." Karem shook his head and chuckled slightly. "Well, it's yours, if you can claim it. Come and claim it." The leader then charged forward, sword swinging wildly. He would have struck Karem if he was faster. Karem ducked down to the right, evading the slash, and delivered a powerful right punch to the leader's stomach, denting his armor. The leader staggered and leaned forward, clutching his gut, allowing Karem to perform a left knee to the man's face. The leader fell flat on his back with a broken nose and blood coming out. He rolled over onto his stomach and looked up at his group. In a rush of adrenaline, he ordered his group to attack Karem. The group was nervous and didn't move until their fallen leader yelled at them again. They finally attacked the young Mando altogether, and Karem chuckled while unsheathing his dark saber. The shortest man in the group stopped dead in his tracks, and the rest soon followed. Karem did not know why. Is that the dark saber?" one asked. It can't be real," said another. Karem grinned wickedly and strolled towards a terrified group of Mandalorian teens. "So this is the blade. It is the famous dark saber once wielded by Tor Vizsla, leader of the infamous Death Watch. I found it in the village belonging to them not too long ago, and I must say the legends behind it are true." He then took the time to swing the saber in the direction of the Mandalorians, playfully. "Many have died on its blade. Jedi, Sith, and other Mandalorians. Anyone care to join them?" Karem got into a fighting stance and readied himself for any attack that would come. His would-be attackers were cautious of what to do. Many thought about running away and forgetting the whole thing, while others thought about continuing the fight. The attackers' thoughts were halted when they heard the sound of a blaster being fired off. Karem saw the beam coming at him and deflected it with the darksaber. The beam was then launched at a tree. The round shattered the bottom half of the tree and collapsed it onto the ground, unable to support its weight. The group was shocked at how Krem was able to deflect the blaster bolt with such quick precision and accuracy. Krem turned off his lightsaber and returned it to his waist. "I see your skills have improved, Krem," spoke an unknown voice. He was able to see his best friend arrive on the scene. Kai Spar. She had taken cover behind several trees and watched the event unfold. She wore her traditional Mandalorian armor and decorated it in the standard colors of green and white of Clan Spar. Her hair was braided and wore her mother's family crest around her head. In her hand, she twirled a small blaster with smoke coming out from the barrel. Chuckling, she walked into view of the attackers and Krem. The attackers all pale at seeing Kai. She was the best Mandalorian on Concordia, and was the prime jewel for young Mandalorians, eager to have her hand. Many boys and young men have tried to win her heart, but would often receive a bloody nose or humiliation as a response. She was a force to be reckoned with. As she got closer to the group, the attackers fled the scene, leaving only her, Krem, and the group's leader. The leader staggered to get up and tried to act professionally, but failed at speaking his words. However, Akai put her hand up and ordered the fallen Mandalorian to return to camp immediately, or else. The fallen one complied and hurried off back to camp. Once he was gone, Krem was able to let out a small laugh. He grinned slightly. "So I suppose I should be thankful for you saving their lives. Eh, Akai?" Akai sighed heavily and smirked somewhat. I suppose so. You're lucky I was here to save you, Krem. News about your abilities has gotten to the other clans and has them concerned. Many fear that you will bring harm to this planet. If you keep getting into fights with the other Mandalorians, you will be branded as an outlaw, or even worse, an enemy of the clans. Krem's triumphant smile then turned to a small frown. He looked down at the ground, and then at the sky. "Well, they won't have to deal with me for long. I'm leaving this planet, for good. I don't know if I'll ever come back." His voice had a hint of sadness and regret as he spoke. Akai felt sadness for her friend, and then for herself, seeing that Krem was her only true friend amongst the other Mandalorians, and one who was not afraid of her. Though she had many great qualities for being a Mandalorian, she had a hard time making friends. She and Krem had become close as they grew up, and both knew of this. However, Akai was raised to be a warrior, thus her social life was never taken into consideration. "If you're going to leave, come with me back to Clan Spar. My father wishes to give you something." Akai took Krem and dragged him back to the clan's camp. Clan Spar was the only clan to treat Krem as a fellow Mandalorian. They gave him supplies and tools to help him build his little fort. Some have offered him to join their clan, with many young Mandalorian couples offering a chance to be his new adopted parents. But due to the clan laws, Krem had not proven himself in the test of strength to be adopted by the clan itself or by a couple within the clan. Even if he wanted to join Clan Spar, he would still feel like an outsider. Once the duo made it to Akai's father's tent, they were greeted by 2 Mandalorian guards. They then let them enter the tent where Akai's father was sitting in the tent center, surrounded by fellow clan members and elders. Akai and Krem both sat down and waited, especially Krem. Akai's father was very fond of Krem. His feats as a Mandalorian Jedi were quite impressive, though achievements would be nothing more than the tenacity and courage to stand up against your attackers. As Akai's father would sometimes say. So, Karem, I have been told that you plan to leave Concordia and search for a better life. You have become a young warrior, and it has been noted. It is a shame you cannot join us. Karem smiled softly. Thank you for your kind words, clan leader. Yes, I do plan to leave Concordia and search for a better life. I do not know where that life will be, but I will find it. Akai's father smiled with pride, though he did not say it. He loved Karem as a son. He wanted to adopt him and raise him alongside his daughter. But Karem did not wish to slander their name. This was one of many strengths Akai's father admired about Karem, one that was often overlooked by the other clans. Before you leave, the clan and I, along with Akai, wish to give you this parting gift. He then summoned a fellow Mandalorian around Karem's age, and with him he had a large package. The Mandalorian placed it in front of Karem. Karem raised an eyebrow at the clan. He wasn't expecting a gift. He opened the box and laid the top on the floor next to him. His eyes widened slightly at what he saw. In the box was the outfit of a Jedi Knight. The outfit was all black with hints of gray outline and consisted of an overtunic, an undertunic, a cloak or outer robe with a hood, and sometimes a tabard, each of which generally varied in earth tones. It was also covered in Beskar armor, from the shins to the handguards, as well as all over the chest and back. Even within the box was a new lightsaber. The lightsaber design was similar to that of the darksaber, but it was rounder and more of a cylinder grip towards the bottom. As he turned it on, he noticed the blade was cylindrical and blue, a common color amongst Jedi Knights, as well as other Jedi of the Republic. Karem was shocked. He had never been given a gift quite like this before in his life. He marveled at the clothes and the saber with the utmost interest and affection. Akai's father could tell that Karem was excited. Go on, try it on, he said. Karem rushed out of the tent into another. After a few minutes, Karem went back into the tent, dressed fully, and everyone's reaction was shock and awe. Even Akai was amazed at Karem's recent transformation. She secretly found him very attractive as well. With his black tunic and overtunic along with his Jedi-like appearance, Karem looked quite handsome. He felt anew as if he was given a second chance at life. He had to return the favor to Akai's father for this gift. He reached behind his left shoulder and presented Akai's father with the dark saber. I present this saber to you, leader of Clan Spar, in return for your help you have given me, as well as this new chance at a better life. Karem bowed and placed the saber in the center of the tent. The clansmen were shocked that Karem would have such a powerful weapon in his possession, not to mention one deeply tied to the Mandalorian people. The leader raised his hand to silence the other clansmen. He picked up the mighty weapon and activated it. He marveled at the design of the blade and could feel the history resonating from it. I will cherish this gift for eternity. Thank you, Karem. The clan leader was genuinely thankful for this gift. As for Karem, he couldn't even recognize himself. In the mirror, he didn't see a homeless Mandalorian boy anymore. Instead, he saw a young Mandalorian Jedi warrior. He was reborn anew. He tried to hide the tears, but Akai could tell that he was filled with joy. He cleared his throat and took a deep breath. Fellow clansmen, I have decided to go to the Jedi Temple on the planet Coruscant. Only there will I find out about my fate and discover I'm meant to be a Jedi or not. I leave tomorrow morning. I think this calls for a celebration. The clansmen agreed and arranged for a party to be held this evening in the honor of Karem. Leaving the tent, Karem walked around his new outfit. He still couldn't believe that this was all happening to him of all people. He then left the camp and went to an open prairie to try out his new lightsaber. He reached for his waist and drew out his weapon in one fluid motion. The weapon, though light, felt in a way cumbersome. He smiled and gave a few practice swings. He felt joy and pride in his heart more than he ever did before. He then screamed into the clear sky with all his might, so that it would be known throughout all Concordia. Hear me now, galaxy. I have been reborn. The days of being an outcast are over, and you will all know my name. I am Karem Sundar, son of Mandalore. His outburst cry attracted the attention of one Akai Spa, who smirked at his antics. However, deep down in her heart was a feeling she had not expected to feel. She quickly grabbed a cup of tea and drank it quickly, yet calmly. This was going to be a great party. Son of Mandalore, Chapter 3. Soon nighttime came around, and the small encampment was filled with lights, laughter, cheer, and the smell of food. Karem and HK were seated next to Akai and her father when dinner was served. His mouth was watering. He had never seen such delicacies in his life. There was Mandalorian wine, Harashun bread, or seed bread, as was the literal translation, red gorup soup, and rosh shatul. Rosh shatul was prepared from the meat of a shautal, a species of animal native to Mandalore's Vescot trees forest, the Mandalorian's cultural homeworld located in the galaxy's outer rim. The creature would first be butchered and then roasted over an open flame until cooked to satisfaction. The roasted shautal meat was then sliced and served. Once the meals were placed in front of them, the young boy grabbed more food than he could handle. He ate and drank all at once, sometimes without even taking a breath. She had to scold him like a mother to a son for eating too fast. Everyone was having a great time. Friends were sharing stories, while others, drunk on wine, passed out. Karem enjoyed and savored every moment of this. Finally, the dessert was presented, and it was his childhood favorite. Ooze cake. Ooze cake was a flat, dense, amber-colored cake. Ooze alali was sweet to the taste and very filling. Ooze cake was made from spices, dried fruit, crushed ground nuts, and topped with scented ujal syrup that gave the cake its very delicious composition and sweet taste. It's been years since I last ate ooze cake. Karem's stomach was rumbling for more food. He cut himself a piece and took his first bite. Eating the piece sent his mouth down a flavor tour of sweetness and spice. He hungrily ate the cake, cut himself another piece, then another, and another, and another, until his stomach ached in pain, forcing him to stop. Akai laughed softly at her friend's antics and drank some more wine. After an hour of his stomach digesting the unquestionably large amounts of food, Karem left the camp and went to the docking bay to look for a gauntlet fighter. He marveled at the massive fighter ships and dreamed of owning his own one day. As he admired these ships, Karem was unaware that he was being followed. He had heard footsteps behind him, and they began to increase in sound and speed. He slowly reached for his saber and in one split second drew it out and stopped only inches away from his follower's neck. "You gotta do better than that, Akai. I could have killed you," Karem stated. Akai motioned her hand down, pointing to her pistol at his chest. He then backed off and sheathed his saber. "So, I guess this is it then." We'll never see each other again, huh, Akai? I guess you're right. Before you leave, I want to give you this. She handed him a holographic communicator. This would allow them to stay in contact wherever Krem was at in the temple or on Coruscant or wherever his Jedi journeys will take him in the future. He thanked her and placed it in his back pocket. She also handed him one of her prized pistols. This is yours, though, he said. Well, I want you to have half a chance of success when you go out there, she jested. She then lowered her head, for an unknown feeling had returned to her. She looked back into Krem's eyes. Unbeknownst to Krem, Akai was slightly blushing under the moonlight. She moved closer to Krem and stopped only a few inches from his face. She tried to speak, but only stuttered. Krem, this is hard for me to do. Over these last few months, I have developed, feelings for you. You say that you will never come back, but I want to give you this last gift before you go. She leaned in and kissed his cheek. Now her face was completely red. Embarrassed, she tried to leave, only to have Krem grab her arm and embrace her in a tight hug. She tried to break away, but to no avail. Krem then whispered words that Akai thought she would never hear in her life. I cherish you, Akai Spar. His words were filled with the utmost honesty and truth behind them. Tears soon formed in the young female's eyes. She pounded his chest, begging him not to leave. But Krem's mind was made up. He would go and never come back. He did, however, hand her another hologram communicator for them to keep in contact with each other. He had swiped it from a nearby camp in one of his more recent travels. She wiped her tears away and put the holographic communicator in her pocket. The two then walked back to camp and spent the remaining hours with friends and family. The next morning, Krem packed all his things and got his supplies ready for his long journey to Coruscant. He realized that once he left this planet, his old life would be gone. With that thought in his mind, he went on his way to the shipping yard. There he was greeted by Akai once more and her clan. This would be the last time he would see them. All the members paid their respects to Krem, and Akai gave him one last hug before leaving. The ramp to the gauntlet fighter lowered down, and just when he was about to get on, he heard the sounds of nearby footsteps running towards him. As HK went inside to prep the ship, he and other clansmen turned their backs to see a young woman running towards the large group with a bundle in her arms. She had short, blonde, thin hair with blue eyes. She wore simple clothing and had dust on her face. Krem's eyes slightly widened at the lady running towards him. He couldn't believe who it was. It was his mother. He had not heard from his mother or seen his mother since he was banished several months ago. He then calmly walked towards her. She seemed tired, as if she had been running for miles, possibly even days. He studied her and wondered why she was out here. I heard that you were leaving today, and, I just wanted to give you some supplies before you left, he said in a single breath. Does father know you're here? Krem asked. Lula Dane dropped her head a little. She felt so guilty for allowing her husband to banish their son away. Though only a few months had gone by, to her, it felt like years. Her eyes were on the verge of tears, and her voice was hoarse. He does. He advised against it, but I couldn't leave. I couldn't let you leave without saying goodbye. I know that I haven't been a good mother to you. I should have helped you. I'm sorry. Krem stopped her in mid-sentence and gave her a loving hug. Lula was shocked. She thought her son would have hated her. She then embraced her son and cried on his small shoulders. Krem took hold of the supplies and thanked his mom for the first and last time. He then told her that if she ever wanted to stay in contact with him, Akai had a hologram for them to talk. That filled Lula's heart with love and hope. After the heartfelt goodbye, Krem got into his gauntlet fighter and set the coordinates for the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Once inside, he got into his seat and prepped the engines for takeoff. He looked outside the window one last time, seeing his friends and family alike waving him goodbye. Taking a deep breath in, he held back the tears and waved back. Seeing the engines ready, a low rumbling happened as the powerful engines lifted the mighty fighter into the air. Once off the ground, Karem flew away. Flying was something new to Karem. He had never been taught how to fly or seen a ship fly. However, he cheated and used autopilot to fly him off planet instead. It was safer. A journey of leaving Concordia's atmosphere was rocky despite using autopilot. Karem was shaken up a bit, leaving his home planet. He occasionally hit the side of his seat and sometimes the window. After finally leaving the planet's atmosphere, he looked out the window and realized that his world paled in comparison to Mandalore's counterpart. The planet was massive and seemed enormous, but he didn't have time to sightsee. He had somewhere to be. Opening the ship's navigational computer, he asked HK to look for Coruscant on the navigational map. The droid looked far and wide on the map to find the planet. Turning his head slightly, he found the said planet. His finger clicked on the hologram and enlarged the picture for Karem to see. He used his hands to find the capital, but there was none. His finger accidentally pressed a button by mistake and activated the ship's automated robot, which in turn happened to be an astromech. D525. Karem saw the small machine roll towards him. The droid made a few beeping noises and flashes, with its green sentry light going into overdrive. The droid was painted all black with a little bit of white, and built with a cylindrical frame like most astromechs. He went over to the ship's navigational map and extended two small pinches toward the planet Coruscant. HK made some angry beeping sounds, but Karem told him to be patient. Making several bloop sounds, D5 told Karem that the planet was the whole capital. Karem was amazed by this. Incredible. An entire planet that is just simply one city. Incredible. Karem then looked at his other droid companion. With a simple command, the trio set a course to Coruscant. The ship's engines rumbled, and Karem braced himself for what would be a bumpy ride. However, once the hyperdrive was ready and the coordinates set, the ship took off. Karem opened his eyes and felt nothing. Letting a deep breath out, he pulled out a book from his supply box. As HK and D5 argued about who was the better companion, Karem started reading his book. But it wasn't just any book. It was a journal of Tor Vizsla. He found it in a recent excursion back on the planet. As he read the book, he discovered and learned about the encounters between the Jedi and the Death Watch, and they were horrifying to the young boy. From these pages, he learned about the dreaded battle of Galidran. This battle was massive on both sides and was orchestrated by Death Watch under Tor Vizsla. Many Jedi Mandalorian died on that day, and it mentioned a Mandalorian by the name of Jango Fett. But he was handed over to the governor by the Jedi for punishment. Wow, this is tragic. This is probably why the Jedi have an estranged relationship with Mandalore. The journey to the Jedi Temple was long and tiresome. Karem Sundar spent most of his days reading the Journal of Tor Vizsla and talking to Akai Spar via the communicator. D5 and HK spent the time comparing mechanical parts. Knowing the book's information, he began to think to himself and was nervous of how he would be received upon reaching the Jedi Temple. One day he heard a beeping inside the ship telling him that he was nearing the end of his hyperspace and reaching the planet Coruscant. He looked outside a window and marveled at the massive size of the planet. He then set new coordinates to the Jedi Temple and grabbed the controls and flew his way down to the planet's surface. Upon reaching the planet's atmosphere, he saw massive cities everywhere, towers, the works, and transport vehicles as far as the eye can see. traveling from one destination to another. He then referenced back to the journal in hopes of finding the Jedi Temple. Lucky for him, the author managed to draw a somewhat crude description of the Jedi Temple, and Krem used that as a template to find the actual temple. Flying more into the heart of the planet, he saw what he was looking for. The massive structure that was the Jedi Temple. Well, I guess this is it. This is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life, said Karem. He then grabbed his lightsaber and fashioned it to his waist. His protocol droid landed the ship onto the nearest shipping yard, and HK grabbed his blaster rifle just in case. As Karem waited for the hatch door to open, he sensed several presence surrounding his ship. He knew they might be Jedi, but it still was not positive. As the hatch door finally opened, Karem and his companions walked out and saw several Jedi with their hands on their lightsabers ready for action. As HK raised his rifle, Karem whipped out his lightsaber and got into a fighting stance. Well, this just got interesting all of a sudden. And with that, listeners, we're going to stop it here for part 2. Now, if you would like to read the rest of Karem's story, as well as his journey with the Jedi, and learning whether or not he will be a Jedi, please check out the story on Inkitt. I will link it below for you to read, and please review the story and send feedback. Even though this is technically a fan fiction story, I do have plans of making this into a trilogy, expanding on Karem's background, his history, his family, as well as his interactions with Legends characters, as well as reoccurring characters from the Star Wars lore. And with that, listeners, happy May the 4th. I hope you enjoyed this episode, this very special episode of Tales from the Wandering Scribe. And be on the lookout for an interview popping up tomorrow. I can't wait for you all to see that episode as well. Well, this is Gabriel Garcia, the Wandering Quill and Wandering Scribe, signing out. And remember, may the 4th be with you. Always.